Hi, my name is Jim Hansen, and I would like to talk today about why is the supply chain and asset owner alignment important? Did you know that within the renewable sector, the biggest gap in alignment in supply chain is between sales and operations? This is according to a broader study that looks at alignment between departments within the supply chain. From my experience as a global COO, I think the findings are critical. It highlights the wide gap in communication between teams, internal and external. Internally, this study reveals the need for sharing lessons learned and providing feedback from operations and procurement and engineering. Leaders should not allow the functionalized organizations and the pace of project work to prevent this essential collaboration across internal team with the supply chain. So why is alignment important and why is there a gap? Well, this is something I would like to explore with you today. Let's look at alignment. The first and probably the most important thing is that you want to achieve an expected outcome that is in line with a company's business plan and strategy. So to illustrate this, we can look at how this works in practice. So we have an asset owner who defines the targets, who then communicates these to the asset manager, that then transforms these targets into a contract, which is then awarded to the service provider, who then realize the targets. If the communication and its content is clear between all stakeholders, the outcome should be as expected. What if there is a misinterpretation of the targets and the product details between any of these roles? Well, I would assume that the outcome would not be the same. What would you think? An example of misalignment could be the approach of maintenance philosophy, preventive versus reactive, or what is included into the service scope. This was a simplified example. As you can expect, the risk of misinterpretation increases with an increase in interfaces and complexity of activities and projects. This widens the gap between the stakeholders. What if the communication and the content is clear between the parties, but there is a misalignment between the business objectives amongst the service provider and the asset owner? As an example, this could be in relation to timeline expectations. The asset owner focuses on achieving a long-term outcome of a project, and the service provider focuses on the length of the term of the contract. Would this have any impact on the outcome? From my experience, yes. If the term is 2 years for an O&M contract and the life expectation of a project is 30 years, there is a huge gap in objectives. The service provider will focus on protecting its margins over the 2-year period, whilst the asset owner expects them to perform a high-quality service that helps the plant to reach 30 years and beyond. This could result in a dangerous imbalance. Equipment maintenance and repair would be short-term, whilst the long-term objective would require an RCA and a preventative approach, removing the possibility for the failure to reoccur. Overcoming this will require intervention during the contracting phase. This is why the long-term intention of the design team is incorporated in contract drafting. Often excluded from contracts are relevant O&M KPIs that correspond with the commercial intention. Availability, capacity, and performance ratio targets are not enough. What about internal communication between departments in a company? Is this important? The answer, as you might already have guessed, is yes. Of course it is. Let's go back to the gap between sales and procurement and operations. During the design phase of a project, it's important to check and confirm alignment internally between the engineers and the end customer, in this case, operations. It could be as easy as agreeing the choice of equipment and technology with the operations team. This is essential in ensuring that the project will perform as expected before resources are committed. Communication is a shared duty in my view. All parties need to ensure that there is a clear conversation, communicating relevant information while sharing lessons learned. This again is critical to underwriting the performance of a project. Not only does important metrics like yield benefit from clear communication, but also HSE performance and control over CapEx and OpEx expenditure over the operational phase of a project. So what are the key takeaways? Well, avoid misalignment by ensuring that communication and content is clear and understood amongst all stakeholders. Incorporate construction and O&M personnel in your project design and procurement activity as early on in the project as possible, a point that I've mentioned repeatedly over the other sprints. Select suitable leading O&M metrics that reflect your business objectives. Do not underestimate the critical role that your procurement department has in connecting development and engineering early in the product lifecycle. Thank you all, and I hope to see you again at another sprint.